they were arguing who was going to shoot him the second time, Philip or Nicky. And the way the poor guy, I mean, the way he was shot, you know, they shot him right in back here, like that. And he spun around. This guy was a strong man. And he spun around and he kind of slouched down in the corner like that, and he was kind of staring, you know. So Nicky got down on his hands and knees, Nicky did, and opened this guy's jacket. He had a leather jacket on and listened to his heart, like that. And he said, "We got to give him another one. Give me the gun." So Philip says, "No, he's got to do it." So he puts the gun point blank and pulls off the knife shot into this guy's chest. So Nicky says, "Help me." We pull this table out. She says, "I need your strength now, Salerno," he said. And he was half drunk, Nicky. Yeah. I never see him that way too much, but he was half on his way drunk. And I tell you what, he was, I mean, this man was like, if you've seen somebody hit a $25 million lottery ticket, that's how happy this guy was that this guy was dead. He was going, "I love it. I love it." He was going. He's grabbed me by my arms and says, "You're one of us now."
What if you might tell us about the trial that you underwent in 1980? Just tell us what you were charged with.
I was charged with murder on the strength of Joe Salerno's testimony, and I was also found not guilty.
I understand that. You were acquitted.
Yes.
Who else was tried with you? Could you tell us that, please? Who are your fellow defendants?
Lawrence Molino and Philip Leonetti, which are also acquitted.
And the name of the deceased again? The man who was killed by someone?
Vincent Falcone.
Say again, please.
Vincent Falcone.
Could you spell that last name, please, just for me?
Falcone.
And was he a friend of yours?
I invoked my right under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution and declined to answer the question.
There was an objection by a defense attorney. They took these lawyers and the prosecutor. They went to the side of the bench with the judge, and the judge says, "You have any questions?" To all the defense attorneys, there were 7 of them. "No questions, Mr. Salerno. No questions." They went down the line. Guess what? Case dismissed. After all that, he didn't have no case. The judge threw it out.
There's no question that the RICO trial, in which Joe testified, and in which he played such a critical part, dealt a severe blow to the Philadelphia family, as well as its control of Atlantic City. It virtually wiped out the traditional Philadelphia Italian mob family.
Now, I'll tell you what we had in our favor. The defense attorneys did not know what I did in 10 years. All they had to go on was their cross-examination from the previous murder trial. And they had the same lawyers, same thing. But this was a different thing. This was the feds were doing it. And there was 17 people involved in a RICO. And I was testifying with 2 other murderers that defected from the Scarfo crew.
I think when you look at the history of the mob, it's hard to find somebody who has done more damage in such a short period of time than Caramandi. Nick Caramandi, he testified in 11 trials that resulted in 52 convictions. And he was a killer and a businessman. And he's interesting because he wasn't as cold-blooded as you'd think a lot of these hitmen are. At times he'd have water in his eyes. Recalling the murders he committed, he killed his best friend under orders from Scarfo. I said, "Nick, how could you kill your best friend? How could you do it? What could compel someone to do that?" And he started tearing in the eyes, and he said, "I miss him." He said, "After I killed him, I'd wake up in sweats, cold sweats, screaming his name. I'd have nightmares. I would see him in the nightmares. I'd see him on the side of the road where we dumped his body, looking at me." He said, nobody ever meant as much to me as this man. It's astounding. Why did you do it? If I didn't do it, I would have been killed. These were the rules.
I was waiting and waiting and waiting for the verdict. The phone rang. It was the feds. It was a guy that I knew. And he said, they're guilty. Every fucking count. He says, they're done.
little two-bit nut killed a president who was very promising, had a great future, would have been one of our great presidents probably. That makes it all so senseless. It has no meaning. Jackie Kennedy once was asked, what do you think if it's just crazy Oswald? And she said, well, then it takes all the sense out of it. It makes it meaningless. I think the American people would feel more comfortable if there was a plot, because then at least, there would be a cause and effect relationship.
It seemed such a brief time between the inauguration and the funeral. And again, I was in the White House with the Kennedy family right after the burial of the president. And these were very emotional periods, things in my life. And I said to myself, someday I'm going to tell this tragic story.
If I could tell you who killed John F. Kennedy, I'd be the most brilliant man of the 20th century, so I can't tell you that. But as you well know, having done so much research, there's all kinds of theories and circumstantial evidence that indicates that Carlos Marcello and some of those New Orleans gangsters, possibly with the help of the Teamsters, set up that assassination.
There's a great deal of literature on the subject, and in fact, the House Assassinations Committee concluded that Carlos Marcello and Santos Trafficante were the most likely people to have been behind a conspiracy to murder the president.
Recently, only a few weeks ago, the lawyer of Jimmy Hoffa and Santos Trafficante, a man who knew Carlos Marcello, Frank Ragano, came forward and made an allegation that confirmed everything I had in my book and everything that the House Select Committee had discovered. It was a bombshell.
My book, The Hoffa Wars, came out in 1978. which was the first to allege that Jimmy Hoffa, Carlos Marcello, and Santos Trafficani had arranged and executed the murder of the president in '63. Now here in January 1992, Frank Regano has now stepped forward to say that, in fact, it was Hoffa, Marcello, and Trafficani who arranged and executed the murder themselves. So I believe that what Frank Regano has done is very heroic, and again, I think it's the most significant piece of information that's come forward since the murder itself.
And Regano's allegation fundamentally is this, that Jimmy Hoffa was feeling so threatened by the Kennedys, he was under indictment, he was going to be prosecuted soon, would probably have to go to jail for a long time, that he sent Regano, who was sort of a house counsel to the Teamsters Union, down to New Orleans to meet with Carlos Marcello and Santos Trafficante to tell him that Jimmy Hoffa wants the president dead.
If he had this information, where has he been all these years? You know, he has since gone to jail for tax evasion a second time, and now he needs some money, so he's going to say that he carried a message from Jimmy Hoffa to Santos Trafficante and Marcello. Nonsense. He doesn't say they said yes or no or anything. He just says, I gave them the message. What did they say? Did they say yes, no, go to hell, we'll talk to you tomorrow? You know, it's a farce. He's trying to sell a book.
I think also greed played a role in the assassination, in that Hoffa controlled an enormous pension fund with $1 billion in it. And the mob was continuously getting loans from Hoffa, $1 million loans. And Marcello knew that if he did this favor for Hoffa, that he would be able to get a $3 million loan. And he was very anxious to get that $3 million. And as a matter of fact, in the testimony of Frank Regano, he has Marcello telling Frank Regano, now you tell Jimmy he owes me. He owes me big, like $3 million.
No, I think that's absolutely incorrect. First of all, personally, I don't think Marcello had a thing in the world to do with the Kennedy assassination. And the FBI agents I worked with in developing the case, I'm not sure they did either. And that had nothing to do with starting the case, pursuing the case, the Kennedy assassination. Mr. Marcello's reputation in Louisiana was such that just that reputation, aside from the Kennedy assassination, was certainly enough to interest any law enforcement agency.
When you listen to his descriptions of himself in the trial transcripts, it's very much kind of Carlos wakes up and goes out and visits the butcher and then goes to the supermarket and everybody says hello to him and everybody knows him. And he once said that if he had to go from New Orleans to Thibodeau, which is about an hour's drive from here, and stop at every house of everybody that he knew, that it would take him a week to get there. That's Carlos Marcello for you. He's just a people person.
The Marcello family, which is, of course, LCN, La Cosa Nostra family, controls the entire New Orleans area and probably extends out into other areas of the Gulf Coast over to Mississippi and Alabama. They specialize in gambling, prostitution, extortion, control of some labor unions, and most particularly one of their specialties in Louisiana is a